and welcome to another episode of the Richmond BigFooty Tigercast. I'm your host, Michaels, and tonight we've got the A-team on, the brains behind it all, Sterge and Wacko23Jacko. Welcome to you.
G'day, mate. How's it going?
Good. You sound a bit deflated. I know this is about the 20th time I've tried this, so we'll hopefully get through it. It is 10:20 p.m, and we have had multiple attempts at doing this, and my computer has shit itself numerous times. We've downloaded a whole new program, so fingers crossed we get through it. But thank you for coming on, fellas. It's been a long time coming, getting us three together to do this episode.
It's about 15 minutes ago, wasn't it, the last time?
And that's not just meaning tonight as well, but yeah.
Just disappointing that all the rolled gold I delivered in the other goes is going to be lost to the ethers and other people won't get to hear it.
Well, I'm sure you can recreate some magic for us later on. As we said for about the third or fourth time now, it's if anyone is keen to come onto the show next season, please put your hand up and send us a message to come on. It is a bit of fun. We all have the same thing in common, talking Richmond. So we've had young people come on. We've had our first female guest come on a few weeks ago. So it is open for everyone, and yeah, it is a good bit of fun. So hopefully we get a few more different guests popping on next season.
Yeah, and it was always the plan for the podcast was to give a voice to the people of BigFooty. So I would love to hear from anyone that's even remotely interested in coming on and having a go. Put your hand up and come on and have a chat. And Michaels is a nice enough bloke, and he'll make you feel right at home.
He's a nice enough bloke with some average internet. Well, this is the NBN working at its finest for us. We'll push on to the autopsy player of the year vote after round 23, the St Kilda game. So Dusty got the 5 votes, Townsend got 4, Vlosten got 3, Grigg got 2, and Prestia got 1. So the leaderboard is now in 5th place, Nankervis and Prestia on 19, Kane Lambert on 23. In 3rd place, Alex Rance on 38. 2nd place, Cochin on 40. And 1st place, Dusty on 76. So, Sturge, the votes will carry on in the final series. We know that Dusty won't change, but there probably is some room for movement for 4th and 5th position, I reckon.
Yeah, if Jacob Townsend keeps his form up, he could sneak into the minor placings off only a handful of games, which would be very impressive, and a big kudos to all the people that have been screaming for him to be in the team all year.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's a pat on the back for us. He's been in fantastic form, and it is good as well to see the posters recognising his form as well. I mean, it's pretty hard to ignore 5 and 6 goal games, but there's obviously been a lot of critics out there of Townsend's, and he has proven a lot of people wrong, and people are rightfully giving him votes, which is good. Grigg's the other one that's, I think, slowly creeping up to a top 5 position as well, so he could be a late bolter as well.
Yeah, there's a few of those types that just, they do enough each week and they're getting the 1 and 2 votes every week. So it adds up towards the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll push on to the review of the St Kilda game. So Richmond 19-8-122 defeated St Kilda 12-9-81 by 41 points and securing 3rd spot on the ladder and booking ourselves in for a qualifying final for the first time since 2001. The game started off pretty well for us. I know we were all a little bit nervous about not wanting to lose the game that meant the absolute most for our season, but after about 10 or 15 minutes when we kicked, I think, those 3 goals, I felt pretty comfortable and wasn't really worried about St Kilda getting back in the game. It just looked like we had complete control. Wacko, what were your thoughts in the game?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Felt pretty damn comfortable most of the game, and it was just beautiful to see the Dusty show in full flight towards the end of the game, getting thunderous applause every time he came off the ground, every time he touched the ball. It turned into magic just about, and that snap was just delicious.
It was pretty special, that banana. And Sturge, what did you make of our tackling pressure? I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I was out at a baptism for the day and then had to suffer through, we watched the fight and then we had to suffer through the misfortune of watching some Essendon supporters stressing that they were going to lose to Fremantle. So I missed the start of the game, but everything that I saw was very, very good, It just kind of proved the point that we really had probably our worst day by far this season in the first game against St Kilda, and they had their best day by far. and we really made amends for it, and it was good to see. A lot of people have been waiting for, as they put it, Richmond to do a Richmond and stuff up, but it was good that we proved them wrong and delivered in those last two games when we really needed to deliver, and it had a bit of luck go our way with Geelong smashing GWS, but at the end we did what we needed to do and snuck in at third, and we get a home final.
Exactly right. I mean, the third quarter we kind of switched off a little bit and went into cruise control. I can kind of understand why that might have happened, but it was good to see us actually bounce back and respond in the last quarter and kick away again. And I just want to mention as well that it was great to see Nick Riewoldt play his final game. He's a superstar of the game, and yeah, it was nice for him and Jack to share that moment at the end together.
Yeah, and I've heard there's a couple of blokes on the radio were going on about how they were wondering why Jack chaired Nick off, and I thought it was a nice touch to see it happen, and I don't really see what all the fuss was about, the fact that a Richmond player chaired him off.
No, there's nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. They're family after all, so as long as St Kilda were fine with it, it should be fine with everyone else. And Wacko, what did you make of I know we spoke about him before, but Townsend game, 5 goals, making it 11 goals in 2 games. He's just adding a whole new dimension to us up forward.
Yeah, I'll mention him in a bit further down the broadcast schedule, but I think it's just great having somebody else there who's a threat. He's not necessarily the tool that we need, but he's what we've got, and I think he's doing everything he has to do. He's pressuring, he's tackling, he's getting to the right spots. And I mean, anybody who read that interview that was published this week, was it from the Players Association?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
His job going into the Fremantle game was to tag Michael Walters,
Michael Johnson.
Michael Johnson out of the game, and he ended up kicking 6 goals on him, and could have easily been 7 or 8. Yeah, I think he's done a great job. He's done exactly what he has to do.
He has the other player for me that stepped up as well has been Dion Prestia. He's really started to come in some good form the last few games. He's been hitting his passes, kicked that really nice goal on the tight angle, and I think he's going to make a really big difference for us come finals.
Yeah, I think somebody mentioned, I can't remember who it was, talking about, the 16 Ks a game he's running or whatever is, it's wasted running, and the fact somebody piped up and said he's still learning the team plan and the structures and everything. He's not 100% sure of where he needs to be, to receive the ball or to deliver it. So as he plays more games and gets used to the structure, we're going to see him being a lot more damaging, and every kilometre he runs is going to be a lot more gain for the team.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, he's only going to get better as the games go on. So I think he will end up being worth what we paid for him. I know people are a bit frustrated that they didn't see it straight away. But yeah, like you pointed out, it comes down to learning our system and where he needs to be in our environment. And that'll happen with time. So Sterge, the ladder position and expectations heading into 2017, were you one of the few that thought we could play finals, or were you like, we'll probably say the majority, and didn't give us a chance of making it after our bad season 2016?
I'm probably, given that I've never seen really a good Richmond team, I'm probably in the more pessimistic of Richmond supporters. I was happy to take what happened and build from where we were and try and work our way back into finals. I don't think anyone expected us to finish third, though.
No, it's been pretty exceptional, and I know some people, opposition people might say we had the soft draw and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, you can only beat the teams put in front of you, and we might have got belted by Adelaide, but we still pushed all the other teams inside the 8 or beat them. So I think we do deserve to be where we are.
Oh, yeah, we definitely deserve to be where we are, considering how I've played this season, And people say we had an easy draw, but, we kind of got screwed a bit playing 5 rubbish teams in the first 5 weeks because, they were rubbish all season. We would have beat them any time in the season. If we had gotten lucky and gotten Hawthorn, Sydney, in those first 5 weeks when they were rubbish as well. There's 2. I know we beat Hawthorn anyway, but there's a free win against Sydney. When we played North, it was one of the few weeks that they were actually looking decent for the season. So we did have technically an easy draw, but it wasn't as easy as it could be.
Yeah, exactly. And Wacko, the attendance for us this year, we've got the highest home and away crowds and the highest home game crowd average. No one can ever say that Richmond people jump on and off the bandwagon. We are there always through thick and thin.
Well, that's the thing. I think, of course, we've got a lot of bandwagon members, but that's because we're such a big club, and just about every man and his dog who had a kid in the 80s or the 70s, their kids support Richmond, and it goes down through the family, so it spreads like a disease. And there might be a whole lot of people who jump on the bandwagon, but there's also a whole lot of people who were there in and out through thick and thin.
It is, and it's, you get all the Collingwood people bragging about being the biggest club in the country. I think we're not far off overtaking them. If we manage to knock up a couple of finals wins this year, I think we'll potentially crack the 80,000 members next year. That's my call for next year. Moving on to, I suppose, one part of the final for this week, and Sterge, you touched on it earlier. It's a home game for us this week. The Geelong board's been very, very amusing, to say the least. What kind of quotes do you have for us to share from the Geelong board about the final being played at the MCG instead of Simmons?
Oh, and this was some bit of genius from me. I knew as soon as we got into the last quarter of the St Kilda game that I was going to get this thread up towards the end, just because that after all the complaining they did when we played them a couple of weeks ago, that they were going to put out their best melts on the Geelong board, and they had a whole thread about it, but let me have a look here. There's things like, there's one here that says, pathetic that the AFL wouldn't give us a home game when we spent millions of dollars on a new stadium and finished second. Supporters want to see their team win by playing at their home ground. Most of us would rather our team win than be able to fit into the stadium to see them live. And that's rubbish, because they didn't spend millions of dollars on the stadium. The Victorian taxpayers spent millions of dollars on the stadium. And supporters want to see their team, or supporters of real teams want to see their team live. You play anywhere that gives you the best chance of being able to see the team live. And then you've got other clowns that are going on about how the 7:50 game is on a Friday night is purposely designed by the AFL to stop Geelong supporters from turning up. Because Geelong to Melbourne's such a massive trip. You can't make it knock off work at 5, and you can't make it in 3 hours. It's an hour and a bit drive, or an hour and a half on the train. It's enough time to get there, park, have a few beers, and then have a leisurely stroll over to the ground. If you can't make it from Geelong to Richmond in 3 hours, you got something wrong with you.
If it had have been a 7-10 game, I might have said fair play to them, because that's a little bit more tricky, but there's still plenty of time to get there. That's just a bit soft on their behalf.
Oh, and 100% it's not a 7:10, 7:20 game. It's a 7:50 game.
Yeah.
So Geelong supporters have a chance to get up from Geelong. That's why it's at 7:50. And if we were playing on the Saturday, they would be crying that they didn't have a long enough break for their semi-final the next week.
I like that. I like the assumption they're in the semi-final next week. That's very good, very smooth. Wacko, have you got any thoughts on the debacle? I know that the AFL wording stipulates that it's a home state final, so I think that's where the Geelong people need to realise that they don't actually say home ground, it's home state.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just... Where were they last time? I mean, fair enough, the stadium development has increased the capacity by a significant amount, blah, blah, blah. But how upset were they when they beat the Hawks at the G? And, how upset were they the last time they won the flag at the G? I mean, it's if they're playing games there during the home and away season, until they get 100% exclusive home ground rights at Simmons, they should be expected to play it the MCG or Etihad if the AFL deems it appropriate.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing before, that if Collingwood Hawthorn, Essendon played their games there during the year as well, I would have no issues for them to be hosting finals because it's a pretty fair year. But the fact that we're the only big club that goes down there kind of doesn't give them too many grounds to make it happen.
Yeah, and I mean they're not hard done by. Just toughen up, get over it, play on.
Play on, yeah, fair enough. So, all right, speaking of play on, we're going to go through just a couple of questions from each of you, just to touch on bits and pieces of the season we've had so far. So I'll start with you, Wacko. Most impressive player for the season?
I was gonna say Lambert, but now I'm going to say Lambert with a side dish of Townsend because both were definitely in the dud D list pile on 90% of BigFooty users' team lists. And I will happily admit I said to multiple people, like, Lambert hasn't got a spot going forwards. What's he's going to have to take his game to another level. He hasn't got it in him. And he's been one of our most consistent performers week in, week out, and it's got the job done when Cochin, Martin, other blokes haven't been able to do it. So, yeah, and same for Townsend. I mean, again, going back to that interview, he said to the coaches at the start of the year, I'm not going to get a shot in this midfield now that you've got Prestia and Caddy as well. Let me play forward. And he's taken the opportunity with both hands, and he's definitely filling his role. So hats off to both of them.
Yeah, both very fair calls. Your most exciting / biggest moment for the 2017 season so far?
I'm actually this might be a bit weird. I'm going to say the build up to the Geelong game a few weeks ago. It was, what were we then? Second and third then? Or was it third and fourth?
Yeah. What was it? I think it was second and third.
It was a big clash, big build up, travelling down to Geelong, managed to get a ticket, and obviously the outcome was a bit disappointing, but just that it was almost a finals-like build-up, and it was good fun.
And your key player for finals?
I'm going to say Townsend, because this might just be a bit of hype, but I reckon having another option down there that can kick goals, it's just another worry for the opposition. If they've got to worry about Caddy, they've got to worry about Townsend, they've got to worry about the Smalls running around, they've got to worry about Jack. That's a hell of a lot more difficult than Jack and the Seven Dwarves. Yeah. So I think that could be a big factor.
I think that will be a very big factor. And finally, have you got a possible thread title name for next week's banter thread against Geelong?
Oh, I got something. It's not great. Sterge, I think I've heard. Steve-O from Channel 7 was reporting he had a good one, but mine was Richmond versus the town that could end global water supply issues with a desalination plant.
Very good. We'll definitely put that one into a bit of a poll and we'll get a vote. Sturge, and over to you now. Your most impressive player for the season?
Yeah, look, I'm going with Josh Caddy, came over to play a role, and we had a chat to him at the player sponsor dinner, and he said that he wanted to he didn't care about playing so much in the midfield. He's happy to play out forward. And, for a second round draft pick, averaged 18 disposals, kicked 17 goals, 18. So, the only problem there is his accuracy, but, he's doing what you would expect from a second-round draft pick. Was never going to be a star and just does his job. And I think with Townsend playing up forward, kicking goals now, he could be a big chance to play more in the midfield through finals and, really have an influence and could maybe have a point to prove against his old team this week.
Definitely, especially considering he went down early on after snagging the first goal. So hopefully he gets on the park and has a big one. Your most exciting / biggest moment?
Yeah, for me it was beating Freo by 100 points. Since I don't really count those games against GWS when they were complete rubbish, and they were all 18-year-olds. The last time we beat a team by 100 points was in 1996, Fitzroy's last game in Melbourne, and before that it was 1988, again against Fitzroy. So, we haven't really smashed a team for the better part of 20 years if you don't count GWS. So it was a big thing, especially with Dimmer saying, we're not the type of team that beats teams by 10 goals. To really go out and give Freo a thumping was really good to see, and one of the few times as a Richmond supporter when you can just relax and enjoy the game and know you're going to win.
The exciting thing about that was we did it in 3 quarters, effectively, because the first quarter was very neck and neck. So it was a pretty impressive 3 quarters of footy. And who is your key player for finals?
For me, it has to be Trent Cotchin. He should go out there with a point to prove. He captained the 3 losing elimination finals. He kicked against the Wind in 1, lost the game, and then only had 9 touches against North. So, he really needs to go out there and show the football world why he's a Brownlow medalist and why he should have been in the All-Australian squad.
And I know you create these threads on a weekly basis. What's your possible thread title name for next week's banter thread?
So I've got 3 possible ideas. I've just lost the post now. Here we go. The first one is qualifying final, Richmond Tigers versus Detroit Sook City. The second one, which is actually a little bit too long for a thread title, but I really like it, and people that know this one will know what I'm playing on here, and that's Can You Hear the People Crying the tears of angry men? They are the tears of a people who will never play a home final again. Or the third option is qualifying final, Richmond versus the Skilled Stadium Sailing Club, after they turn it into a marina, after they fill up Skilled with all their tears.
Some very good options there. I'm really looking forward to seeing the first maybe 10 or 20 posts for the banter thread. It's going to be pretty good. As for my selections, my most impressive player, I had David Asprey. I think he's been a massive, massive player for us this year and has kind of been one of the main reasons, I think, why we are where we are today. If it wasn't for him stepping up and just, playing almost to the equal of Alex Rance and being able to take the key forward each week, Rance wouldn't be able to do what he does. So big tick for David Asprey. And if the match selection committee learned anything from the last game against Geelong, hopefully he lines up on Harry Taylor from the get-go, because I think that's our best way of hopefully nullifying him. The most exciting moment for me was Daniel Butler's 80-metre running goal against West Coast. That was just pretty exhilarating, that he just burst away, backed his pace, and ran the 80 metres and slotted the goal. And I hope he starts to recapture some of that form, because lately I kind of feel like that he kind of just coasts to the ball and waits till he gets it in his hand before he then tries to hit top speed, where I'd like to see him hit the ball at top speed so people can't catch him. The key for finals for me is our small forward as a collective group. Castagna hasn't had a great last couple of games in terms of numbers with disposals and goals, but his pressure's still been all right. But we can't afford for 2 or 3 of them to have quiet games. They all need to be up and about. We need at least 2 of them to be hitting the scoreboard, and the pressure just needs to be manic. And the possible thread title I've come up with for the banter thread is qualifying final, Richmond Tigers versus Saxa Cats. And if you all look in your cupboards, I'm sure you have a Saxa salt shaker. So that's what that's in relation to. But yes, their tears are delicious, as Wacko would say over there. We'll do something a little bit different now, because it's the 3 of us on. We can maybe even talk a bit about the behind the scenes of the podcast and how it all kind of comes together, with the exception of tonight's episode, which has been a complete debacle. So Sterge, starting with you, how did this idea kind of all come about from behind the scenes?
It was an idea, I thought about getting a podcast started, and I think I mentioned it to some of the old mods before. I was actually a mod as well. And then just after we got lit up, someone, I can't remember who, sent a PM asking about actually running a podcast, and then that kind of fell by the wayside. And then about halfway through this season, I tried to get it going again, and thankfully yourself and Wacko put your hands up and volunteered your time most generously to do all the heavy lifting while I took all the glory from behind the scenes. And yes, that's kind of how it came about. And like I said before, is to just, I know there's 3 or 4 other Richmond podcasts, but there's not one that caters to the people of BigFooty specifically.
I don't know about you, Wacko, but I kind of sometimes sit there and think, is Sterge behind the scenes with the other mods just saying, oh, look at this, guys, look how good I am, look what I've created, and just really taking some serious credit for what we've done?
I don't think he's doing that behind the scenes. I think he does that whenever he gets a chance, when he's on the podcast. Any thread that opens, he posts it in there. So I think it's pretty public knowledge.
No, he loves a bit of self-promotion, Sterge. No, it's honestly a really good concept. And I suppose when I saw the thread, there's a lot of people putting their hands up to go on, which is great. And yeah, no one was really putting their hand up to host it. And I thought, oh, well, I'll have a crack and see what happens. And yeah, very thankful that you jumped on board as well, Wacko, to do editing, because I would have no idea how to do it. And hopefully it doesn't get to that over the next 3 weeks if you do happen to not be able to do it for us, but we'll get to that later on. I suppose from my end, and we just had to wait for guests to put their hand up to want to come on, and we did headhunt a few. I think we did discuss a few people behind the scenes to see if we thought that they'd be good to get on, and yeah, just shot people inbox messages, and I think everyone's been pretty receptive to coming on. There's been a couple who haven't replied at all, so hopefully they'll maybe change their mind next year. But yeah, it's been a pretty good adventure. And then basically once we know who the guests were, we just throw together an agenda based on the threads that you guys are all posting in on the main board. And then I'll just add my own notes along the way, send it through to the guests, and off we go. So I suppose the trickiest part that I've had would be the recording programs, I guess, and having to work out how they all work, and then the whole uploading behind the scenes to iTunes and YouTube. It was a pretty daunting experience at the start, but once you do it a few times, it's not too bad. Wacko, what about yourself? When I send you the MP3 links, what kind of steps do you have to take to make it sound as good as it does?
It really depends on who's on the podcast, how easy it is. You get some guests that are just not naturals and really horrible to deal with, like Sterge, for example, breathing loudly and talking about himself a lot.
We should have nicknamed him Darth.
You get sometimes somebody clinking ice blocks around for the entire show, or maybe Michael's cats trying to get a bit of public airtime.
Yeah, I've got they're both actually sitting next to me and they're both asleep, so I've gotten a bit lucky with that tonight.
You'd be surprised how little I've actually had to cut out. Most of the stuff that comes out is sense from BigFooty posters, funnily enough. It's hard to believe, but yeah.
It's like people just change when they're speaking as opposed to typing. It's I know people had that view of Tiger71. They couldn't believe how much sense he spoke.
Yeah, once you cut out all the and there was pretty much all sense.
And I suppose the process of getting special guests on, like as in past players, I think we've all had a crack at getting some guests on. For me, mine was as simple as just sending someone a tweet or looking up Kane Johnson's business and sending him an email. So it's kind of close to stalking. So, but just reaching out to them and just explaining what we are and what we do. And we've been very fortunate that that they've said yes to come on. And there's been a couple of technical difficulties with getting Joel Bound and Calvin Moore on, but hopefully we'll get that sorted in the near future. Sturge, you had a crack at getting Shane Tuck on. We've still not heard much back about that one with the boxing.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you're selling yourself short there, because I had a crack at one and got completely blanked. So, whatever you're doing a good job at it, because it's not as easy as you're making it seem, mate.
It is just pot luck, though. I mean, they don't have to reply. Even today when I posted the Johnson interview on Richo's wall and said, he mentioned you as one of the best players he played with. Can you give us a retweet? I thought, surely this won't work. And sure enough, he did. And I extended the invite to see if he'll come on, but haven't heard back yet. But he's obviously got a bit on with his work and family life. So hopefully we can get the big man on at some stage. But if anyone out there does know any other former players that might be keen to come on, don't be afraid to shoot us a message and we can try and organise it, because I think it's great to get in touch with some past players.
Yeah, definitely. And we do have a little bit of an issue. We'll probably never get a current player on, so getting those past player interviews are the best way we've got of, and a lot of them are quite interesting to talk to. All of them so far have been really good to listen to.
Yeah, it's been surprising, because I suppose I get a bit nervous. I write out, say, 20-odd questions, and I'm thinking, on paper, it looks like a lot, but if they only give 1 or 2 word answers and aren't really into it, it could potentially only go for 5 or 10 minutes, which would be a little bit of a disaster. But been very fortunate, especially Kane and Mark Dragosevic. They were very open, and we're happy to talk about everything. And Scotty Turner was a ripper bloke as well. And we've been very fortunate. So hopefully that kind of luck continues. Sterge, have you had any favourite moments so far during the podcast, whether it's been one you've been on yourself or one that you've listened to?
Yeah, I think 2 things stand out for me, and that's the main one is the reception we've had from the people. Never expected when I first floated the idea to have such a positive reception from everyone on BigFooty. So it's really great, and we're really thanks to everyone that listens, and hopefully you keep listening and get all your friends to listen as well. And my second favourite moment has to have been your podcast with Tiger71 and all the North flogs losing their minds about it. Absolutely for a day there. And we're up to, what did you say, 2,000 views on YouTube?
2,200. We've cracked the 2,200 mark now.
So normally the rest of the episodes are sitting around 200. And it just absolutely blew up. I started a Twitter account and got into a bit of an argument with Ricky Nixon over it. And then from there, it just was picked up by all the North vlogs for the next day and a bit, where there's a good 20, 30 pages in their Dusty thread that they've just dedicated to dissecting your podcast, which is hilarious.
Just on that, I don't know if people will believe this or not, but we had to actually rein Sterge in and tell him to calm down with how hard he was going to Ricky Nixon. We're trying to get some good publicity, and Sterge is trying to tear him a new one.
All I said was that the media read BigFooty for story ideas, so we put a story idea in audio format to make it easy for him.
That's probably not far from the truth, to be honest. But yeah, it was.
We know they troll BigFooty.
Yeah, no, we definitely do. It's so obvious when stories come out after you've read it during the day. But yeah, that episode with Tiger71, I suppose we all anticipated it would be a lot more popular with the Richmond board in particular. I kind of thought it might have hit 500 to 600 views. That was the size of the Mark Dragosevic interview. I thought, it should probably reach that pretty easily. But to get over 1,000 views within 24 hours was just mind-blowing. And like you said, when you see and hear the North Melbourne people are getting into it as well, it's pretty hilarious, because they weren't happy at all. And just a big shout out to those flogs who actually decided to attack the man and not the ball. It was pretty poor form. So don't mind people criticising our content and what we say, but to criticise Tiger71 as a person was pretty disrespectful. And just so they're aware, if and when Dusty signs with us, we are going to do another special just to rub it in your face.
And I've made some friends over on the North board now that were still yesterday going on about me. So g'day to everyone on the North board.
Yeah, the filth wizard. He's now a Richmond resident on the Dusty thread, so I'm sure he'll listen to this as well. We'll tag him in it. He's a good bloke, Filth. He's all right.
Plenty of times, but
yeah.
some of his mates are no good.
Just a bit of a twat, but that's all right. Can't win them all. Wacko, what about yourself? You've heard the whole extended version of every episode. Have you had any favourite bits that may or may not have gone to air?
I've been extremely privileged to be able to listen to every single thing that you all thought you were revealing in secret, and I've now heard it, so thank you for that. I did I really enjoyed editing the special New Zealand edition of the podcast.
Oh, yes. Yep.
That was a good listening.
Yeah, Kiwi Day was fascinating.
Some good stories in there.
Yeah.
And he's going to come back on the show, and we're going to just do an episode dedicated to him every week, I reckon.
Well, I liked your other idea. I don't know if I should be saying this in case we don't run with it, but when you had like the open Michaels, you called it special, he would be the number one target to have on, just to talk to him for half an hour to an hour. He can share his stories, and yeah, he was really good.
That was another genius idea. So it's not just Sterge with the genius ideas. Some of them are mine. I reckon my other favourite moment, which I'm going to include at the end of this podcast when we go through a couple of our funnier and finer moments. I can't remember who the poster is, so sorry in advance, but the story about Aaron Fiora, was it?
Oh, yeah. It was Shay 88, I think, when he saw him in the pub.
Yeah,
was it that one?
Yeah, because it was in relation to
the Dragon Savage interview.
That was funny.
Yeah, it was Che 88. That was funny. We should have put that in there. yeah, definitely include that.
Yeah, so warning, if you're listening, you're going to have to hear your story. You did give us permission to play it, so I'm going to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's going to be an absolute ripper, so make sure you listen to the next bit, everyone. Any other good moments along the way there?
Nah, not really. I never get sick of listening to your voice. Some of the other posters, not as nice to listen to on the ears, but we can't all be perfect.
It's a fine art.
Yeah, it's been really good fun, and it's interesting listening to everybody's story, and I think you could almost do just a whole episode talking to posters about their story as a Richmond supporter, because that's what we all share that and have in common, and that's the human interest in it, I guess.
Yeah, but definitely, and like we said before, we'll definitely start doing maybe one or two of those randomly, just to find some of our older, more experienced posters who do have some great stories to tell. It would be good just to dedicate an episode to them, because, yeah, like you said, we're all here for the same reason, and they've got some pretty interesting backgrounds and stories to tell, and I think everyone would love to hear them. So I think with that, Wacko, I believe you're going to play a few bloopers, which should be fairly interesting. So I hope everyone enjoys the blooper reel that Wacko's about to run for you. And I suppose, is there anything else we want to touch on? I suppose there's a couple of upcoming episodes to keep an eye out for. There'll be a Brownlow special. I'm hoping that's still locked in anyway, with the Brownlow Guru, who does post a yearly thread on the main board with his Brownlow predictions. He's been doing it for years, and he'll post up what kind of multi-bets you can do and things like that. So if you do like to have a bit of a punt on the Brownlow medal, make sure you tune in for that one. And the other one that'll be coming up is the draft show with Bishop and Pie for Life. So that'll be a good one closer to the date. And then another trade update with Tiger71 a bit closer as well. So outside of that, did you guys have anything else to add before we just go on to the VFL quickly?
No. All good from me, mate.
All right. So that just about wraps up our special edition for this week. Obviously no game for the seniors this week, but the VFL boys are playing Collingwood this Saturday, 2nd of September, 2:40 p.m. at Port Melbourne for the elimination final. So if you do have the chance to get down there, I know you like to get along to the VFL Wacko, so make sure you get down and support the boys. I mean, there's going to be a fair few AFL-listed players playing, I imagine, and it would be good for them to get through this first round and have both of our teams go as far as they can.
Did you say the game's at Port Melbourne?
It is, yeah. They must have put in to host the first round of finals, I believe.
We finished 5th. What a rot that we don't get a home final. Come on. VFL.
Surely,
what are you doing? This is just ridiculous.
Especially after a redevelopment at Punt Road. We've put up some nice new wire fences, and we've got a new scoreboard. We've got some mud on the sides.
We've got the bricks with names in it. And I mean, if we happen to lose, it's pretty much coming down to that reason.
Without a doubt. I mean, it's not like we just lost to the Pies at Punt Road a couple of weeks ago, so we'll forget about that. But
But yeah, we do wish the VFL boys the best of luck and definitely get down there. So, Sterge, Wacko, thank you for coming onto the show. And as I said, it's been a long time coming to have the three of us on for an episode. I'm just reading what you're typing while I'm speaking. What a campaigner. Fantastic. But yeah, so thank you for coming on. And it's been a pleasure. And hopefully there's plenty more good episodes to come. And thank you for all your hard work and dedication to helping it get up and running.
No, thank you, mate. You're the brains behind the whole thing.
No, we all take credit. So,
yeah.
All right. So Matt,
go Tigers.
I'll throw go Tigers and the outro. That'd be good. Good outro, Wacko. That was good.
Like, I know a lot of people on the board say I sound like the Aussie version of Antonio Banderas, and they just wanted me on just to hear my voice. With that said, everyone just take a f***ing chill pill. That's just all this stuff about North, that broke club, it's all bull.
Oh, that's all really robotic for me.
Sorry?
I didn't get any of that. What to do?
He's gone again. This is a disaster. Back. Maybe. No. Alright. Yeah. Fix your problems.
Well, I think so. Just
the funny thing is, and I wouldn't admit it while I was on your show because I'd look like a complete fool, but when the reason why I met him, and he's a very nice guy, we were at a nightclub and he was with Aaron Fiora. I'd had, a drink or two after work, and being a young, dumb, passionate Richmond supporter, decided I'd tell Aaron Fiora just what I thought about his third draft pick before Pavlich. Hey, look, like I said, it's not something I'm proud of, but it's something we've all done when it's on a forum like that. I just happened to have him in a quiet nightclub in my town that I lived in. And Travis Sevic actually walked up to me and flew the flag for Fiora, which is probably half of the reason why he didn't play a lot of footy, Fiora. But he flew the flag for Fiora, and I stopped dead in my tracks. And I loved Travis Sevic as a player, and I was devastated that he had those injuries. And I stopped to Travis Sevic. I said, look, mate, I understand you're sticking up for Fiora, but by the way, on behalf of every Richmond supporter, I'm shattered for your injuries, and you are a gun. And he sort of stopped. He didn't know what to do. I suppose he expected me to fight him, and instead I stood there and just told him how good he was.
I just want to paint this clear if I can. And Michaels, I'm conscious that I want to take over your whole entire show. Now, I don't like him. I think I actually had the pleasure to meet the guy and had a wine with him. He's a toss bag, but he's a very, very professional toss bag.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Richmond BigFooty Tigercast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and YouTube so you can follow all the roast and toast, the reviews and previews, and all topics Richmond. Also keep an ear out for our special episodes of interviews with past players. Go Tigers.